Shall we start? Yeah. Okay, welcome to the Foundation Infrastructure Working Group. Let's start with open PRs. Ooh, Joseph as well.
Yeah, just barely.
This seems like a pretty small change.
Yeah, it is with big effect. So at the end, without that property, you are not using Saint URLs for the Azure Blob Store. And maybe we should configure it. Yeah,
makes sense.
And that property already gets wired up from the director side?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's already there in the client, right? Yeah.
This is the director side, right?
This is the director side. Yeah.
Yeah, this is in the if Azure storage thing, then yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I started reviewing it, but it's so big. And somehow I got interrupted for multiple times.
I mean, there's requests already. I mean, we now have this whole thing where people are like reviewing docs like every week. It's it's crazy. I like this. But yeah, there's a conversation, so it's waiting for changes, right?
Hello, everyone.
There is a question whether we should put. So there was a question actually. Comment why I voted +1.
Here.
Yeah. So this node, which you see that this feature is available with Bosch. Still on the top of the page. Most probably doesn't make sense to be.
Yeah, this is pretty old. Yeah,
that's right.
The suggestion is to move it down. Yeah. So if you have an opinion, yeah, you should.
What do you think, Benjamin?
Yeah, no problem. I've just kept the text as is, and we can update that. Okay, right.
I mean, it's just a good opportunity to review this section. Like, probably it takes a few years before we get to this again. So,
yes, indeed. Yes. No problem.
So does it seem like a good policy that we don't want to break Bosch V1 stuff, but it's okay to maybe like remove documentation for it? So you can still use it, and we're going to try to not break it, but like we're not going to thoroughly document differences between that and the current world.
I think that's a sane thing.
This is what is documented is what happens when you migrate from no AZ to AZ. Yes, that's just not a concern anymore for quite anyone. So because no one has any deployment to migrate this way.
We
can keep it somewhere down,
yeah.
But we should focus on the current functionality.
Mm.
And just a FYI, we started using migrated from recently in some experiments to rename some instance groups, and like there's some bugs with it. Like somebody got into a state where there was multiple links and there was a conflict in the Bosch director database because of it, just from like rearranging some instance groups. I think they were trying to like combine 2 instance groups into one or something, and like Bosch was not happy about that. So there's some bugs in migrated from, but I don't think we necessarily need to worry too much about it given its use. But if somebody runs into them, we might want to fix them. We might end up fixing them, but it's not super likely at this point.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What is still relevant in that documentation, though, is that when you move instances from one AZ to another AZ, this is documenting what happens. This is documenting the disruption that happens in that case. So we may refactor that this way. Maybe focus on what happens when you migrate from an AZ to another, and then say, oh, by the way, at the time when we introduced AZs, it was exactly behaving the same. Yeah, everyone is okay about that? I do this during the week, and
yeah, no worries. Ooh,
okay.
Foreshadowing.
Approach.
Yeah, so this is the half of it that's actually on the CI pipeline. And it's mostly, so there's 2 sort of important changes here. One is that StimCell trigger is no longer sort of the resource being passed through. We never use the trigger for anything. It just triggers all the steps. So now the first step generates a timestamp, and that's the thing that triggers all the way through, rather than having sort of 2 things that are all passed the same way in trigger. That's not super relevant. And then somewhat confusingly, this resource, right, I guess it was up there. There's this new resource. Oh, there it is on line 800 there. For so at the end of the pipeline, it makes a commit with the timestamp that's going to be on the tag. So it's like this orphan commit that's not on a branch and it only lives on the tag. Concourse is fine pushing this, but we had to make a new resource to push it with this lovely line 864 there, where it's like, here's a fake param, because if you're using global resources in Concourse, that resource looks exactly like another resource. So even though you're pushing this tag to this one resource, the version actually shows up on both. And then it can like try to get it from the other resource because they're all merged behind the scenes. And then it can't get that one because it's not actually on the default branch. So that part's a little bit weird. You got to have that additional resource in here with that fake param to sort of bust the Concourse global resource cache. And then somewhere in here, we also, I think
because you have activated that global resource feature on the installation.
Yeah, it's off by default, but like it saves a lot of check containers.
I'm not sure it is on by default. I think it
is sorry,
off by default.
It's not on by default, yeah.
Okay, right.
And then there was a push that we removed from somewhere in here that was on the publisher pipeline, I think. And maybe it was at the very top. I forget, but it didn't make any sense and it just made me nervous. Yeah, that one. The publisher pipeline was pushing to the Bosch Linux StimCell builder, even though it's not modified, and the input SHA and the output SHA is always the same. But given that we're now like pushing and making this tag, I'm like, I don't want any more pushes, especially ones that don't seem to do anything.
Sure.
But this part's just pipeline wiring for the most part, and a task that actually makes the commit and where the tag's going to live.
And where does it use the timestamp tag?
In the StimCell builder, different PR.
Ah, different PR. I see.
The fabulous benefits of having multiple branches of things and having to have some of them all the same and some pieces different.
So we have this one and this one. This is the use it.
And none of this has been run because
Oh.
spinning up a copy of the stem cell pipeline is a lot of work. So
yeah, so we're gonna go for looks sane, and then we merge it, and then just gonna
fixes
fix it
come
afterwards.
later. Yeah.
Fixes come later. Like
I did
then we
test
get
some of it as far as like the like, can you push to a tag that has no branch on it, concourse resource? I'm like, that's not going to work, because it explicitly says in the concourse resource docs, like tag is or branch is optional unless you're doing a push. And I'm like, well, we're doing a push, and that's a lie. You can totally push a tag without a branch. But yeah, this is the part that actually uses the bits, which if a file exists in the repo, we'll use that. And if not, you'll use the environment variable if it's set, and otherwise it just doesn't do anything, and it falls back to the old behavior of not using a snapshot apt repo.
so this one.
Yeah, that's the build time.txt, which didn't put a lot of thought into that. Just lives at the root now. Doesn't actually live anywhere except on the tags. So, but if anybody has opinions on it should live somewhere else, it should be called something else. It should just be that one line. Well, no, there and in the other repo where it commits that file.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ramon said it works perfectly though. So he must have tried it. But I'm kind of suspicious of that because I wouldn't think it would.
What is this timestamp used for?
Sorry, this is for reproducible stem cells. So right now, if you check out a tag where we built a stem cell, it just does as an apt update, app install packages. So you're not going to get things the same. Canonical offers these snapshot apt repos where you can pass a timestamp and it will give you packages that are most recent at that point in time. So the goal is to have it so if you check out that tag, you'll actually build a stem cell that is very similar to when that thing was built. There's a couple packages we install that don't come from these repos, like our syslog stuff, I think. So that you're going to float on, but this is a goal to try to make it more similar, with hopefully a goal of using this in the FIPS stem cell building at some point. But currently their FIPS apps repos don't actually support this timestamp functionality, but they say that's coming this year. But because we build the FIPS separately from the normal one, the packages have a chance to float.
Okay, there could be another location where this txt file could be, which is /var vcap bosh etc. Because into bosh etc we already have the stem cell name and the stem cell version. Possibly
the file lives in the
there.
stem cell builder. It's a
Yeah,
stem cell builder.
the file doesn't live on the stem cell.
All right. No.
Just the builder. So when you check out the builder tag to like, I want to build like Jamie 1.318, you'll actually build things similar to that. Right now we have all these tags there, and like you check them out and you just don't get anything at all close to what that tag is for.
Okay. So it doesn't live in the stem cell. Right.
No. We could put it in there, but I don't see any use for it in there currently.
Huh? Is this not in our working group? Oh, this is in the stem cell something. Yes.
There's a different working group?
Area.
I don't know what that means.
So we have we have a bigger group of people maintaining stem cells. And this is for stem cells, I guess. It kind of makes sense.
But not the Bosch Linux stem cell builder?
I think this is mostly for CI, like for being able to have access to like Concourse and being able to, I don't know, fix CI.
I think the community repo needs a Venn diagram.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this one is basically
Kill that.
let's keep it open, right? Till the other one is merged.
Why? So we work harder?
Yes. Pressure. Natural pressure.
Did that builder actually work, Ramon? First try?
Yeah, it worked first try. I was like, whoa.
That seems confusing to me, considering. Well, I mean, to be in fairness, most of it was from your PR. I just like copied that, so that was really the hard part. The rest of it was just passing around some environment variables.
Yeah, the annoying regex was the for the
Yeah.
ABT, that was the biggest thing.
Generating a timestamp, I definitely stole from your PR and had to copy that to a couple spots.
Yeah, no, I just did the date. I ran the date command the same as what you would do in the CI and exported that variable and works. So it was nice.
That was one aggravating piece of this, which is the timestamp generated by a concourse resource is not parsable by the date command. It's like, I don't know what that is. So you got to use a regex
Okay.
to modify it first.
What does it give? Is it like a new?
It's got, I think it's because it has like microseconds and time zone on it or something. Like date just
Okay.
says it can't parse it. Oh, I think this was.
This is a different one. We discussed another one last time, but that got closed.
Yes, they had an issue of like, I want to disable this. And we're like, you can, we just don't document it. So they were like, what if we documented it? Which is better than we did, apparently. You can throw me as a reviewer on this.
Just
What's that?
accept this.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just accept it here. It's just like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like this makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to? We have
yeah.
now looked with many people at it. Anybody against merging this?
No.
Speak up
No,
or forever
and
stay silent.
and by the way, the way Bosch parses spec files is just to pick what is interesting for Bosch server and doesn't care about anything else. So example keys are not just in the defined anywhere. They are just conventional and not looked after by Bosch, which doesn't parses all the file and doesn't validate any schema actually. So yeah. It's harmless. I mean,
But
Actually, can you?
Go ahead.
Sorry, can you expand up a couple lines there? Just the little arrow on the left.
Yes.
Description. Oh.
Example usually is aligned with description. Well, and oh yeah, sorry. It's just
It's merged already.
the website. Okay.
I'll fix it in post.
All right.
So we're gonna have a post edit. Yes. That's
I'm like, this feels weird. Why is there just a sentence there?
I see. But we all looked at it, right? We all are responsible here.
Do you know the French comic character called Lucky Luck, who is firing faster than his shadow? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're merging faster than your shadow.
Definitely. But I got stuff done. It's not, the quality is not always
You get
there.
twice as much done because of the fixes.
Yes. Oh wait, let's there's a whole, wow, yeah, there's a lot here.
This is, yeah, because of the as Brian says, the NVIDIA libraries for if you're trying to do LLM stuff, the packages really want to be on the root disk. And so this is adding an ability to just expand the root disk for a stem cell for the vSphere CPI, just as cloud property, I believe. And yeah, I left a comment and he was like, it's totally fine. That wasn't necessary. And so I think I'm I meant to approve it yesterday and didn't. But if somebody else wants to take a look, feel free. It's more complicated than you would expect. I mean, the implementation isn't, but because vSphere uses these linked clones, so when you have multiple VMs, they actually all share a root disk in vSphere, and it only does a copy on write. But so you can't predictably expand one particular VM's root disk and leave all the other ones alone. So it actually turns off the linked clones if you want to expand the root disk. So you're going to use a bunch more storage space if you do this, but it makes it possible, which is nice. And it's cloud property, so you can focus on only the VMs where you actually need an expanded root disk. I think this comes back to the question of should the root disk on stem cells just be bigger? But like the LLM stuff is like really big. So it's like, seems kind of weird to make everybody have a bigger thing, but it's also, nobody's quite clear on what the cost of this is. Like, because on vSphere, they're using linked clones, you're actually not wasting, you know, the number of VMs times 10 or 20 gigs worth of space. It's just one copy of it.
Except for now you will be using.
Right. So now it's actually, if you do have a bunch of LLM stuff, then you are going to be wasting a bunch of space compared to if we just made the root disk on the stem cell bigger. I think it's something we think about as part of the Noble work. What are the actual costs of this?
Yeah, and also like we can probably revisit this easily down the road, like once there's like a huge influx of LLM users, right? Like all these people, like the floodgates have to open and everybody's using it.
Yeah. Although the root disk size has come up a number of times, especially on
last time we did
Azure.
it was for the but that was because of a bug, right? In the agent.
No, it was the Microsoft tooling was writing logs to the root disk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also an agent, right? Or wasn't that like the WA agent thing?
Yeah.
And we've moved that on the ephemeral disk, I remember.
Yeah,
that's right. We had to symlink a bunch of stuff to not make the root disk bigger. Although to be fair, like people shouldn't be writing. The root disk is intended to be static during the running of a VM. So if logs are being written, they should be onto the ephemeral disk. But this stuff is static. It's just that you need to install more of it to run this stuff.
I'm trying to remember. We had this discussion like 5 years ago. I'm trying to remember why.
I think it'd be a good experiment when we go to build Noble is just at some point before we've cut it, like, let's just change it and increase the size by 20 gigs and see what all the stem cells look like. Like, are you actually, like, are the files themselves probably aren't bigger, but maybe they are, you know, all the, you know, OpenStack and vSphere actual files are like 20 gigs bigger. It's like, well, this is maybe a bad idea. But if everything's basically the same size and it's just a bunch of 0 bytes that matter, then we should at least consider it then.
Yeah, because that would also solve, so that would solve the NVIDIA stuff and the stuff that Long came up with, like the GPU enabled.
It's the same.
Oh, it's the same. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
NVIDIA is like NVIDIA drivers you need for LLM stuff.
I thought it was again something else.
But there won't be any special stem cell line for this stuff, which can then have that size.
Right. And that was one of the goals of doing the disk resize, is that way you don't have to cut special stem cells that are basically just bigger disks and or have the drivers already on them, because the drivers are very much in flux too.
Yeah, Noble will also probably be again at least 500-600 megabytes bigger again, so it seems to be the trend.
Does anybody have context on this? Who uses CloudStack?
There's only a few people's using. I think Orange is using CloudStack, right?
I guess so. Yes. Well, but it sounds reasonable to. It just sounds like this is aligning the Terraform templates for Cloud Stack. Did I read Cloud Stack? Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Cloud
yeah,
Stack.
right. That's definitely orange. Yes.
So I'm fine with this because it's in line with the other ones. Just like I never checked this because I don't have Cloud Stack, and this is in line with the
The
newer
other ones.
What's
the
the
new
name of
Terraform
that guy?
That person.
Oh yeah, he is from Orange,
Sorry.
Mario.
Okay, we don't have
Mario
his
Dimitri.
or her name. Never mind.
What? Approve and run? Sure.
They are pretty maintaining all the Cloud Stack related stuff anywhere.
It's nice that people start using bootloader again. So all my effort is not wasted.
What workstation setup?
And does BBL is
Output.
using Terraform, but does BBL need to switch to the open source fork of Terraform now that
No,
Terraform
because
there
it's
is
the source.
there is absolutely nothing wrong with the current Terraform. We just use Terraform as it's intended. We don't build anything around Terraform. Therefore,
Okay.
we are still
All right.
licenses not going to bother us.
Okay.
Those licenses were specifically created for people who wrote a shell around Terraform and sold their product.
All right. Reselling of Terraform.
Yeah.
Actually. Okay. Okay. All right.
It's
I
the
get it.
same with the Monet stuff and
All right.
What was this all about?
This was
Monet?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
that stuff.
Oh,
The dot Ruby, right?
yes, Ruby version.
yeah, it just seems valid, like some extra information.
Seems so good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good note.
It definitely increases the overall truthiness of the workstation setup. I would assume most of it is lies.
Someone wants to get an
Sometimes people reference to documentation. And I think, wow, this has never been updated in like since the beginning of time.
yeah. But then they read a piece that Benjamin recently touched, and then they read like, "Wow, this is the truth. This is so good."
Do you get private DMs now, Benjamin? Just you're
No,
Box whisperer.
I am not more famous.
That one we did. This one. Why is this? Oh, that's that snippet that you get when you download.
Their own fault for not using Z Shell. Z Shell just quotes it for you when you paste it.
So you're saying user error, self-inflicted?
Well, actually, I hate when Z Shell does that. I always quote it and then it like double quotes it. I'm like, no. Yeah, probably have to reviews on that. Just
Yeah. But this would be useful to test. I don't know how this.
yeah. My shell doesn't care if there are extra quotes or not. It's just It's probably more like a MacBook thingy.
Maybe it's related to VSH.
ZSH? No, ZSH doesn't have any issues.
But it may have slight differences in its
I'm
things
using
like question
ZSH,
mark.
and I
Yeah.
never have issues with.
But few people actually run the Bosch uploads themselves, copy pasting the command from Bosch.io. Maybe. No, just
I
guess.
forgot to check the action items from last week. So I reached out to Thomas and he
Yeah, he
he
said we
made-
could review it.
Yeah, he approved the changes last week, so I've assigned myself now.
yes.
I didn't have time to do a full test locally. Just run through the code and if it actually what it actually does.
Any more people want to take a look? I mean, can always, but there's already quite a lot of reviewers. But I'm planning to take a look this week.
Again, bootloader.
Yeah, okay. Then we do standard v2. Please make a PR.
Yes.
Yeah. All proof contributions.
We are happy to review a PR.
Something like that. Hmm. 5 days.
CFAR. Oh, yeah.
It's something with
Application
Postgres. Postgres. Somewhere I can see that it's Postgres process.
Oh yeah, I worked on that at the time I was working for SAP. I fixed that actually. It's related to BPM not sending the correct shutdown signal
Yeah.
to Postgres.
Yeah.
The guy is upgrading from a very old Bosch
Mhm.
version.
I was thinking exactly the same, right? He's jumping 2 years.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's just the stop script in the old version. So like any upgrade was probably going to fail for him.
Yeah, it's at the time there was some more code in the pre-start for handling this situation, but this code has been removed. So
This one.
yep.
Yeah.
Old as that P this PR.
At least 2 years.
What's the version? How old is that one? 271.
It's probably 2 years.
This requires looking
Yeah.
for it in the GitHub releases.
Ooh. An ancient. Yes, that sounds better. Oh, yes, that's also better.
It's
August 3, 2020.
2-7.
And it has the remove still Postgres pitch, which helps avoid locked issues and unclean restarts.
This is in discussion. Okay. And what was the last time we? Ah, yeah. Here's a few. Did you look at this?
We have it in our backlog to look at this, but it's not super high priority. I think it's coming up in the next week or two, if I remember right.
We'll leave it at that. Okay. Any other business?
No, just a big thanks for government Australia, who has fixed the inheritance with mounts. It hasn't blocked
Yeah.
me with my concourse that would really not work for quite a long time, actually. And I'm so
Yeah, that
happy
was-
to have my concourse back.
Was that block
I-
agent change that we
No,
recently?
that was that
Stem cell
setting-
builder.
Was
the
that
setting is
stem cell
root
builder?
in the
Yeah.
Stem cell builder.
And I haven't tried yet to resize the disk with Bosch Light, but I think this is going to unblock that bug also either. Just need to try sometime and check that.
It's that don't change the system default from shared.
You were already on having it.
This might also have fixed a multi-month issue we have with a customer about mounting SMB shares that started failing in a recent kernel, because like this is the only thing that's changed. And suddenly we have this long-running ticket with Canonical. We're like, something broke, and they're like, it's this commit. Here's a script, and we're like, it's fixed now. All of a sudden,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was a really great contribution. Like it looked a bit sketchy in the beginning, as in like, whoa, that's a suspicious change, and then like all this context came in, which is great.
And I
As
could
in,
never
like-
possibly, yeah, I could
This-
never possibly track that down to the root cause this way by myself.
Yeah.
So
99% of the people cannot do this because it's systemd is like a magical portal where shit
We've had a
happens.
Canonical support engineer for like 3 months trying to solve the problem.
and more than that, I mean this inheritance with mounts, I was not aware of that, and also the tree of mounts in Concourse on Bosch Light is very complex. You have containers and containers and containers, so yeah, it's pretty tricky.
Yeah.
This is the gold standard of how you want to have issues raised, right? Like,
Yeah.
like if people raise issues, we just point them to this one. This is how we want them, right? This is our expectation from now on for issues raised.
Most probably, if you have such an issue, an AI will be able to provide the fix.
But here again, Crony is mentioned. It's like Crony is our Achilles heel. It's just
Every time, yes.
I wanted to touch on a couple agent changes. One of them, which a couple of you accepted and was merged, and that was just the we increased the size of a channel in the agent. It was causing a very, very edge case problem, which is if the agent is running a synchronous task like a pre-start or post-start, and people are doing git task on that, I guess an asynchronous action, that if a second async action came in, then it blocked the agent entirely. That one's was never returned, and then any additional git tasks never returned, so everything just ended up timing out, and then the agent was, I guess, fine after that. But so this makes it so that it no longer blocks. So the second async action comes in, it won't process it, but it'll at least let that request return so that additional git tasks can come in and see, and then they'll be processed in serial after, which is somebody had to be doing a long running, I think it was a 7-hour pre-stop script, and then they tried doing a Bosh logs on it. So this won't fix that. It'll stop it from breaking it, but you won't actually get the logs. It'll still just the git logs will just hang there forever, basically.
But even with a 7-hour thing, it's still asynchronous, right? It will just get the status of that task. Is it still running, right? So that the chances of hitting this, right? These tasks need to come in at the same time.
Yeah.
Really, you have a really small window.
So very small thing that was fixed. The other thing that was fixed, which you'll note there wasn't a PR for, and I wish there was. I believe there was 3 of us working on it, but one person ended up committing. It was actually to the director itself, and that was related to the start command. So most of things like run script are async actions in the agent. So it tells the agent to do something, and then the agent sends back a task ID, and the Bosh director just checks in on it. Start is not. Start is synchronous, because on Linux, start is just can set up all the Monet stuff and then tell Monet to start, and then I'm done. And it takes a couple seconds, so it's fine being synchronous. Turns out on Windows, start takes a long time. And if you have enough things running, it can take more than 45 seconds, and then start just fails. We didn't want to do this, but we were left with very few options. So we tried, so there's this thing we use in Windows. We don't have Monet, so we have this service wrapper. And we tried upgrading that, and that actually took it from 4 to 5 seconds per job to 1 to 2 seconds, which was twice as fast, and fixed the problem. But it turns out they changed a bunch of behavior over the last 5 years since the last time we updated that. And the last release was a year ago, and nobody's touching it since. So it's abandonware that the last couple of versions are broken for, and the version we upgraded to doesn't actually fix it. I think the correct change here that we didn't want to do was to make start an async task rather than a synchronous task. That would fix it, but it also means new agent command, Bosh has to know about it, so you have to have backwards compatibility from both sides and move the world over to async start over the next couple of years. But so we didn't really want to do that, but increasing the agent start timeout basically was the easiest thing to do. So this was done.
If this duct tape works now, then why not?
Yeah. Start is also the weirdest action, because it basically is an async action that's not. I don't know if it was made first or last or what, but everything else is a run pre-start, and then I'm going to check on you. Start is run start, and then it's okay, I'm done, but it's not actually done. And so rather than being an asynchronous task that waits until the world is started, it calls start, returns immediately, and then the director calls get state repeatedly, not get task to how's this task, but get state, and waits till all the jobs come back from the state of the VM that they are running. So it's this could have just been an async task and then fit in the same pattern as everything else in the agent. Instead, it's like async, but we use a totally different mechanism.
Speaking of which, this is fairly designed around Monet. I mean, it's because Monet start is just returns right away that Bosh is doing this pattern.
Yeah.
Possibly when we finally switch to something else than Monet.
You know that 5-year plan that we already want to migrate to BPM, which we don't do at all.
The Windows stuff is actually much better than the Monet stuff, because in the Windows side, they have this service wrapper, but the Monet file in Windows, in a Windows job is just this, I think it's YAML or JSON that like is a generic process description. Like, I want to run these processes and do these things. And like, it's a generic thing that we then take and transform into this service wrapper thing, as opposed to like, here, use Monet, rather than like, here's a generic thing, and then we'll use Monet or systemd or whatever we want, and you don't worry about it.
And yeah, and speaking of which, I've seen recently Monet files using advanced Monet features, which were definitely not recommended to do at the time BPM was written, because the intent was to move away and reduce the adherence, reduce the hard coupling to Monet features at most.
And a lot of those Monet features that are used in prominent Cloud Foundry jobs don't work the way people are using them. Like the depends on, there's like depends on that people use, and that does not work with the way the agent drives Monet at all. But like Cappy has like several depends on. It's like, oh, this job should wait on that job. It's like they don't wait at all because of the way that we start Monet.
Yeah, and I've seen that with the sync, the sync formats credentials. Actually, it is using advanced Monet stuff. Yeah, would need some refactoring.
Have you seen the last thing for?
Just in this one, I recently came across this one. So
that's one way around Monet.
Yeah. No, you have Monet, like Monet. There's still Monet, right? But actually, if you look at the Monet file here, it's calling Garden CTL, and then Garden CTL is calling Garden, which is just calling systemd. Like if it's if they're systemd, right? So not on their Bosch Lite probably.
Seems like these Garden folks should make some PRs into the agent.
Yeah. So it seems like people are already starting to use systemd for their actual process management.
In that case, yes, they delegate to systemd. But systemd is running on Bosch Lite.
No.
It's actually running auditd and Cronin. No, Cronin is not running in Bosch Lite.
Yeah, I think
but
systemd doesn't start in Bosch Lite at all, right? Which is like something that if we do move to systemd,
I mean, are you talking about the host or the guest?
in the container?
The VMs, the container VMs, right? Like that, there's no systemd either.
I might be confusing, yeah, indeed, between the actual VM and the containers. Yes,
yeah. I think that's why they're doing this stuff, right? So that you can still deploy CF on a Bosch Lite.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But regarding the timeout, so there is actually no side effect expected.
There shouldn't be. Because this is so like start is far enough along in the deploy process that like if there were a communication problem, that would have been found at like ping or apply or something. So like your start should, especially on a Linux VM, should be not noticeable. Like only if there like becomes a communication problem, but for like between like pre-start and start, will you then have to wait an extra 45 seconds for like start to timeout, basically, is the only like potential downside.
Yeah, so if during the start your like data center goes down or like 1AZ goes down, then you will definitely have to wait these additional seconds.
That is true.
That's about it.
But the world can disappear within 45 seconds, dude.
But it's twice as likely within 90.
I seen the last week I had a Slack conversation with some guy who wanted to prevent deletion of a deployment.
Oh yeah, that was from, wasn't that from Orange as well?
Yeah,
I think so, yes.
I was confused in that thread about like the desire to, like, I thought like having a job that just fails in pre-stop if like a Boolean's not set. So they're like, oh, you first have to do a deploy to set this thing, and then you can delete it. Like that sounded sane, but then it was like, do a deploy to set this thing, and then that thing talks to like an OAuth service to make sure that the right number of people have approved stuff. I'm like, this sounds
Yeah.
too complicated for like making sure you're not deleting
I
function
just wanted to
things.
say, it's like do a simple file or do a simple check somewhere in a database, like true or false, and just like don't make it too complicated.
Yeah, there must be some
yeah,
corporate requirements that I don't want to know about.
Yeah, because like if you want to go that far, I mean, you can always Bosch SSH in and change that like pre-start script.
Yeah,
or
if you want to hack
stop.
around, you can.
Yeah, the system was not designed for like I don't know. Like I think there's some like trust in the operators, right? Like Bosch basically trusts its operators. That's the issue.
Which
that
is why
they are
like
running
just a
into.
marker file is like, oh, you don't want the operators to accidentally delete them, but like if you have operator permissions, you're not going to stop somebody from doing something they want to do at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they really want to break shit, then they can do accidental deletion, but it can happen with copy paste stuff. I have done that many times. Probably as any other engineer in the world.
But you had backups, right? It was all fine.
So you have backups, like yeah.
And the restore procedure was documented, so also
Of course,
everything
yeah,
was good in
definitely.
the end.
It took me only 2 weeks to find the documentation, but
Okay. Thank you all for
It's more
attending.
often.
Yeah. Thank you.
see you.
Take care.
Have a nice
Bye.
week. See you.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
See you.